dissect this a little bit and go through verses 2 and 3. What does the 6 days later mean to you?
It was after last week's lesson when Peter said, "You are the Christ," and then immediately Jesus called him Satan and said, "Get behind me, Satan." 6 days after that.
Mark seldom indicates how much time has passed between events, therefore the reference to 6 days here is unusual and perhaps meaningful. Was Mark suggesting that the radical and totally unexpected statements of Jesus in Mark 8:27-9, that's what she was talking about, had to sink in for the apostles and the disciples before this new major event took place? And what they are saying, and in Matthew it says 8 days, but what they are saying that this did happen on the Sabbath day. So that makes it even more evidently believable, I would think. He does not mention this mountain's location, or even if Jesus and the disciples were still in the region of Caesarea Philippi. There's a question about where this was. They would think that some were thinking it was clear down here south of Galilee, but because of the height of the mountain and the location, why they are saying that it happened up here on Mount Hermon, north of Galilee, on a higher mountain, 9,200. That takes a while to climb, doesn't it? I mean, I've been out in the mountains, and I went up about 6,000 feet with my kids, and they practically had to drag me. And I kept like, so they had a lot of time, didn't they? Going up that mountain. And it doesn't say much about what was said going up the mountain. Boy, I'd be asking a lot of questions, would you? How come we're going up there? You know, what is this? Okay. So, does anybody else have any comments on that 6 days later, going up the mountain? Okay, then we get into, and he was transfigured before them. This is one, he was dazzling white, almost a blinding light that they had experienced, in which Jesus was garbed were a symbol of absolute purity, absolute holiness. And so I'm wondering if the disciples were already starting to think, because from the Old Testament times, a shining bright light meant a divine, meant like a heaven appearance. So I'm sure that they were probably already beginning to see something that was happening.
Well, it could be the result of a near-death experience, too. And if they'd struggled up that mountain for 9,000 feet, from a physiological sense, they were out of breath and fatigued, and then they started blacking out and seeing things. Now, having been spiritual men, they saw spiritual figures.
Now, did you come up with that by yourself, or did you just read
You know,
it somewhere?
I think God speaks to me.
I was going to go into that later, but, you know, I don't know, but what now might be a really good time. Just so I get to the end of this lesson, people, I may have to just skip over everything and get to the barriers of listening to Jesus. But this bright light and this shining experience is really important, because this light they were comparing to the light that God created back in Genesis 1, they say. But it is not the light of the sun. It was a different light. It was the light that they're talking about that God created. And this is a very blinding bright light.
This is what people who had experienced a near-death experience, they will tell you that they saw the brightest light they had ever seen. And they always felt like somebody was talking to them. And one of my very dear friends, he said to me, it was really funny because he said, this big bright light came, and he said, I'd never seen anything so bright. But he said it was like a helicopter was out there. And he said the man in white was saying, come on, come on. But he said, my wife was saying to me, don't you dare go. And so he said, I had a fight with the helicopter man and my wife, but Angelo did survive, so.
How many people here, and has anyone experienced this light or a vision such as this?
Are you including those what they call the near-death experiences,
Well,
or not?
I am. Because I feel like that it is this great light that happened to Jesus that is telling us that this is the divine, that this is the heaven speaking. And maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But how many, is there anyone here?
I just know my father had a stroke and he fell off his tractor and was lying in the dirt for a long time before anyone found him. And while he couldn't speak very well after that, he was able to get out. That when he was lying there, he saw his mother and dad beckoning him to come.
Jane? Well, it happened a long time ago when my first son was born. There were problems and I went into shock, and in fact the doctors came out and told my husband to bring the family in. And I saw a very bright light. I saw our pastor from my childhood standing there, and different people from my life standing there. And it's kind of, but I survived.